What's up, everyone? Welcome to Construction Technology Podcast. I'm here with Mike from Build Vision and Andrew from Join. What's up, gentlemen? How's your Friday going?
Good morning. Happy Friday.
Good morning
Friday.
from the West Coast.
All right. We're talking this morning about two things. We're talking about AI, as usual, and we're talking about ontologies first. So, ontologies are slung around a lot. I first heard about ontologies through Palantir. They really popularized the term when they were talking about Foundry and their custom ontology that they wanted to use as the benchmark or the baseline for every product and build on top. I think people in construction are hearing the word ontology. We don't really know what it means, or not everyone has a fulsome understanding of what it means. Let's talk about why it's even relevant. So, in machine learning, you first need to understand the topics or the kind of discrete areas of interest. Some people call them taxonomies. You can also call them as ontologies. They're slightly different, but you need to understand how I put certain data in certain buckets. So if you're talking about let's say a document ontology, you have different types of documents. You have specs, you have contracts, et cetera, et cetera. Gents, well, first of all, when you're talking to customers, are people asking you these questions? Are they using the word ontology? Do you find that they don't know what it is? Like, should we explain it? What do you guys think?
Think I had a conversation yesterday with a large owner developer, and it sounds like they're in a like a tech role, like a lot gets funneled to them, but they're being bombarded left and right with people slinging ontologies and forward deployed engineers, which are two terms that no customer outside of that has ever said to me. But I think there's a lot of vendors making noise about this, so I think defining it will be good.
Mike, how about you? Are you seeing this with customers?
Yeah, we're definitely pushing it out to customers. We have forward deployed engineers that sit with and build out workflows. And, our position and our thought process is like if you're sitting at a general contractor, they're using like Procore for PM, Primavera for scheduling. They have CMIC or SAP for ERP. They have Autodesk for design, and they've got hundreds or maybe not hundreds, but dozens of subcontractor tools. And each one like has its own idea of what a project is. So what Palantir's pitch is, or what ontology is like ontology is the layer above this. So it's like trying to define and share like what a project is, what an activity is, like what a crew is, what a PO is, really any like thing that's connected between the two. One analogy that I heard that was interesting is like the current stack is a bunch of instruments in an orchestra, and then the sheet music is ontology. So it knows how to like read and pull and like push everything together. So that's how we're like positioning it to customers. And all that means is like, hey, you've got thousands and hundreds of different silo data points. We will go figure out, normalize, bring all those pieces together and give you insights that you want. So if you use Outlook for email, we'll plug into your Outlook so we can read emails to get construction documents. If you use Salesforce or Acumatica for your CRM, well, we'll push any data you want to Salesforce or Acumatica. You get bids in Building Connected. All right, cool. We'll engage with Building Connected to get data. You use Procore for change orders and submittals. Cool. We'll connect the dots there so you don't have to see anything. And our entire pitch is like the user doesn't have to even engage with Build Vision as a platform. There's an agent that does every one of those steps, and then they get their own agent that's branded to them, that's contextualized to them, that's harnessed to them, and just responds in their email, responds in their text. And that's how we position ontology, with that kind of idea of like the glue between all those different parties.
So if you're in construction, you're a general contractor, and someone says, I want to give you my ontology, we'll give you products that are using our ontology. How would they separate fact from fiction? How do they know someone actually has proprietary data, a data set to have built an ontology versus, it's all marketing fluff?
So that I think that's like I don't think that's that I would push back on initially. Like ontology is not creating net new data sources. Ontology is the glue that connects all the data sources that you historically have. And I think that's like the differentiator. So if someone's like, hey, we're creating this like ontology data lake, or we're creating these like new data sources by doing X, Y, and Z, that moves the point. Like there's connecting the nodes of your existing solutions. And then there's what is called orchestrations, which are like tools or workflows on top of ontology that can do actions. That's all ontology is. It's not, hey, we're going to go like take pictures and then store project data in a specific instance of ontology. It's connecting the glue between those tools, and then there's tools and orchestrations around that provide value.
How is this different from like an SAP in implementation? Like, I got to imagine SAP walks in, they say like, "Look, we think you can do everything on our platform," or Salesforce walks in, "We think you can do everything on our platform, but in point of fact, you're gonna have a bunch of other data sources and, like, tools out there, and you're gonna wanna be able we're gonna work together to model, like, what a deal is in Salesforce or what a customer is, and then you'll be able to build things that interact with it." Like, is there a difference between old school ERP data modeling and implementation and the ontology way?
So SAP is like the system of record. I would say like ontology is the layer above the system of record. And I know that's kind of like it's like such a fuzzy word, but like again, you're not again, I think some customers are replacing the SAP with Palantir tools, but ontology wise, the ontology would be like, hey, I can go grab your SAP data and connect it to your Procore data. That's ontology. What Palantir sells like, hey, we can rip out SAP and create a new ERP system. And that's different. That's orchestration, not ontology. So I think that's kind of, that's where I would differentiate the two.
So
When
if I'm
I'm look
buying an ontology, I'm not buying a substantial new database.
I don't think you can really buy, like, it's very hard. I think it's hard to like buy an ontology. Like you can't just be like, hey, I'm going to go buy this. And like, it's going to
I'm
solve
gonna
a problem.
organize my business and the various digital tools that serve the business, and I'm gonna be able to map like this business concept that we have, a crew and productivity on it, and what our holiday schedule is, and I'm gonna be able to connect the dots between these things. Yeah, okay.
And that's what Kavanaugh, that the contractor that's like kind of been the first kind of foray into construction Palantir has talked about is like, hey, we like normalized all this data and now we have like an app on our phone that like lets us do T&M, time
mm.
and materials, right? And like that time and materials, that's not ontology. That's like an orchestration off of the data structure that's been created.
So an ontology would be, so, hey, we have this ontology that we're gonna use to channel data to the correct place, right? Okay, so let's say within my ontology, I have RFIs as part of that ontology, right? So to recognize that it's an RFI, what I'm assuming Foundry does is they're saying, hey, we've seen enough RFIs. We have enough data there to be able to proactively, automatically identify this as an RFI. So we route it to the correct place. Is that right?
No, because the right position would be the RFI is created in Procore. Now we are taking that RFI data node and connecting it to my scheduling Primavera node, connecting that glue. That glue, that connection that between those two nodes is the ontology.
I see. So it's not the
Yeah.
identification. It's not the taxonomy. It's a layer
Because you're
above the
gonna
tax.
you're gonna normalize it as part of this implementation process. You're gonna normalize it around the taxon the word today, around the taxometry you have set up. And that's why there's forward deploy engineers that are spending all these time and resources because it takes a lot of time to go, hey, let's go through your process. We have all these slots, and here's how we think about like here's how.
Okay, got it. So your ontology is really how you're routing individual taxonomy items to a location. But if I don't have a data source, let's say like I'm not building, I don't have anything in Procore. Okay, I just have a SharePoint bucket and I have RFIs. Can I benefit from your ontology? Or do you need data to be able to tell me, well, like this is an RFI and I'm going to route this to the appropriate place?
You
The
need an org.
ontology live inside the business? Sorry, Mike, I'm cutting you off, but just to check my understanding, like the ontology lives inside the customer, like, and it doesn't. It might you build it for the customer, and it might share patterns with other customers, but fundamentally, you don't take it off the shelf in the same way that you
Correct.
don't take someone else's business off the shelf.
Correct. It's like it's not a data warehouse. It's not a BIM model. It's not like a BI tool. It's like a shared operating tool or model for the business. And then like like one example I've heard consistently is like it turns nouns and verbs into governed software. Governed software. So a project, and then there's a verb on that project, and it's like that governing process of those two. So if an RFI is created in Procore, then it has to go to Primavera governing. It's like those two nouns. That there's a project that needs to have a consistent node there. So that project now is in the ontology. It's Project Luigi Towers. So there's the Project Luigi Towers in Procore. There's a Project Luigi Tower in Primavera. Ontology is saying here's the source of truth for Project Luigi Towers,
I
and
see.
then what that allows you to do is that give you like that shared definition across all the different tools. and then you can start doing actions on it or verbs on it, and that could be orchestration. So in that example, if you don't have an RFI tool, you don't have a Procore, you would create an orchestration or a tooling around how do I do RFIs, and you could use ontology to create a tool around an RFI approval because it has to go connect to these parties and knows where to go. It would not guess right now. I'm guessing would not be out of the box. One interesting model that they do build towards is their goal is, hey, we do. They call it gravel road to hardened highways, which we've like kind of used as well. It was like they'll forward deployed engineer a workflow with a customer. It's a gravel road. So, hey, we built this app for our customer that does T&M. If the foundational team on Foundry, for example, that sees value across the entire platform, they'll harden it. And now there will be a T&M app that's available for anybody to use. So they don't have to rebuild it. And that's where it breaks away from the consulting model that like a Accenture or somebody has historically leveraged, where it's like, hey, we're going to sit here and charge you millions of dollars, just build your super, super custom software, and every time something changes, you have to bring us back in and change it. It's differentiating between, hey, we're a full custom dev shop like Accenture to, hey, we're an off
Because
the shelf
Accenture
building
doesn't
connector.
own SAP. SAP, no doubt,
Correct.
looks at what people build and hardens things
Correct.
into the
Correct.
system.
Correct.
Kahua, I know their whole model is they have this like programmable thing, and then they harden applicate. They
Correct.
actually they get paid to do it, right? But it's
Correct.
if you have the same party doing the implementation that owns the like technology that's going to express the ontology, like you're able to harden repeated pattern into the system.
So when they say they're going into construction, they're saying, hey, we've got 10 orchestrations that are construction specific. So we can go in out of the box and it's not as much as a custom build.
Okay.
So
So
if you're approached by a software vendor who's, let's say, not Palantir, okay, and they're slinging ontologies, like my pushback again is if I were a GC and you're telling me what an ontology is, it's such an abstract concept. You actually don't want to talk in terms of ontologies. You want to talk in terms of outcomes and workflows. This is what the GC understands. But I mean, if I'm sitting in where I currently am as a software builder, if someone's going to say, hey, we have an ontology, we have some understanding of how, we would orchestrate, let's say, taxonomy items into final workflows and products, I would want to say like, well, I need to understand that you have a track record. From a taxonomy perspective, you need to have data. You need to know, let's say, what an RFI is. From an ontology perspective, I'm assuming you just need to have a track record. Is that the right way that a GC should be thinking about this? How do you give them a bullshit detector so that the word is just not being slung around inappropriately?
I think if someone tells you they're selling ontology in construction that's not Palantir, it's bullshit.
I don't know. I want to hear like going through this, right? I've been learning. I'm learning here.
Yeah.
I want to push back on what I want to counter what I said earlier about how I'm not hearing this from customers. One thing we hear a lot about from customers, they don't use the word ontology, but like is the project record, is centralizing the project record, just having like a place where there's a project record that is definitive, and it's not just like, well, there's a project number, and we pray that it gets typed in consistently across every application, right? Like they've pulled that out and they put it somewhere and they've mapped how it maps out to all the other different applications and systems that do it. Like they're building that piece of the ontology, and then they're starting to like define actions that would happen consistently on top of it and that might be expressed in code. So I feel like actually they are like a lot of people are going this direction. And so customers are doing it, and then isn't it seems like there's a layer of integrators that would be compellingly like that could go do this, right? Why is it just Palantir that can do this? Like why can't Build Vision show up and say, "Hey, we're gonna we're gonna work with you to define your ontology, like map it out and execute on it." Is it just that like it's so complicated and sprawling that only companies of Palantir scale can do it?
From my understanding, I think structurally a lot of companies are not built this way, and how their infrastructure is set up. Like I know there's been a lot of struggles with Procore and how does Procore talk about a project between a subcontractor and general contractor on the same project. I don't think Procore has officially solved that problem still. So there's pain points there. If you look at like a Kahua, I mean, Kahua is just kind of a workflow tool, despite what they say, like on a system of record. I know it's tough. It's like it's very like tough. I think like your bet is that you're hiring the engineers that go work at Palantir are going to be very, very intelligent in the foundational piece of Foundry that they built. they've made very structural positions about how to build a software that I don't think is easily replaced. And it goes way above my knowledge of how like software is built. But that's been people that are smarter than me have told me that the position of how Palantir has built ontology as a structural piece, as a foundry or whatever system it is for whichever industry, is very, very hard to replicate.
Yeah, I feel like if I were Oracle, I would say, yeah, that's bullshit. Like, come on, we go in and we
So
wrap our
Oracle's
arms.
different. Like
Yeah.
right, yeah. Oracle's different, but like Oracle hasn't been able to execute. Like they buy a construction software company, like, and it hasn't even been fully integrated into their entire Oracle platform, like with Primavera. Like that's like my pushback is like Palantir would make the bet that like there would never be a standalone. They wouldn't buy a construction tech software and have it still operate as a
Yeah,
construction tech
sorry,
software.
I don't mean Oracle applications. I meant the Oracle ERP line where I would they have been successful. It would be interesting to know whether it's ERP implementations or like the application layer payments and Primavera and Aconex and so forth, like which drives more revenue to Oracle from the construction sector because the spend on these ERP tools is chunk.
I would bet it's Primavera. Like Aconex, I don't remember the revenue numbers when they were purchased, but Primavera seemed to be like the de facto scheduling software for the industry up until like the early 2000s. Now it seems like, I don't know, like Microsoft Projects, a bunch of other tools, but like I still see Primavera and P6.
I bet Textura. We got to figure out how to answer this question.
We need someone from Oracle to come on and
Yes,
tell us.
yes, and the reason this is a side note, but Textura's pricing model is a brilliant way to tax the entire industry
Subcontractors.
in a way that nobody knows. Well, in the end of the day, the owner pays for everything, right? And like Textura gets written in.
So it does. So I'll push back on that. So my dad works for Kone, a massive elevator contractor. They have to absorb all the Textura fees, and for him
Yeah.
to get approval on a $500 Textura fee is a pain in the ass. And he goes, "I hate using Textura. I'll just talk to the contractor and pay the contractor directly." As a company that has billions of dollars of revenue and has completely cash flow, for him to get approval on a $500 expense for Textura is so much extra friction that's unnecessary. And he's not billing back the owner. They're just like writing it off.
But the way I've heard it, and you can do it, is that you know who the Textura shops are, and so you pay for it out of your bid. Like, you don't bill it back to the owner directly. You say, like, "Okay, like, Luigi GC is gonna hire Andrew Zukowski's shitty subcontractor, like, to do doors and windows." Like, the first project, I'm like, "Wait, why do I have to pay?" This is, like, the key thing that Textura did. Luigi might pay a subscription to use Textura to administer it, but if I wanna get paid, I have to pay $500 a payment or whatever it is, like, crazy money. And the first time I do a job with him, I'm ready to throw bricks at him because I have to spend all this money on it. The second time, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, he's using Textura," like, "Oh, it's in the contract," like, just turn the knob up a little bit on that bid, because I also know that everybody I'm gonna compete with on the job is gonna do the same thing, right? Like, it won't impact, like, baking it in won't impact my competitiveness, like, for the job. And so Luigi is able to go to the owner and say, like, "Look, these are the 3 bids, here's the range, let's pick the one." And so Luigi might not understand exactly how much money Texture is pulling out of the system. The owner never sees it. Like, nobody except for Oracle is able to attribute how much money they're pulling
Yeah.
out of every project. And I think it's a lot.
I just like the rent seeking model is just like it's so poor. It just like gives a bad taste.
Yeah, I
I'm not
don't.
even super familiar with what they specifically do. So it's like it's payment software.
Yeah, it's payments.
So Texture is payment software. It's advanced pay. So hey, like we're gonna pay you net 10 as opposed to net 30. And then you're willing to like take less of your payment to do that. And then there's a fee structure around all those pieces. I've heard of companies that are trying to like do it the other direction, which I thought was interesting. I talked to one of my friends that mentioned about a company that like is creating a um, not a liquidity market, but like a clearinghouse around payments of like, hey, here's my outstanding payments. Here's how much on the dollar discounts I'm willing to absorb to like clear today as opposed to clear next week. I think it's an interesting model to push back on a Textura because it's the opposite direction. It's not taking the fee that goes to Oracle. It's just taking the, hey, I have a dollar outstanding of accounts receivable. I'll take it right today for 96 cents. And then they just take a small transaction fee in the middle of it, which is interesting. It's just going a little bit the other direction.
So if we bring it back to ontologies and you're a general contractor and you're trying to implement software, right? When do you think you're going to look off the shelf? And when do you think you're going to say, actually, I want to work with a forward deploy engineer. I want someone like a Palantir to come build something custom.
Unless your revenue is above $1 billion, buy something off the shelf or use Claude Cowork
Okay,
to do
let's
it
say it's on
yourself.
Palantir. Let's say it's on Palantir. I would
I
actually, I would
I
push
would
back massively on Claude Code. I don't think any
or
contractor now should be building with Claude Code.
if you're doing a singular point solution that does not engage other parties, I think Claude Code, Claude Cowork can get you very, very close to what you need to do as an individual user.
I agree.
That is like, so that's like kind of, that's everyone should go try before the position to anyone listening to this podcast outside of our moms. If you have a pain point that you're trying to solve internally, go spend $20 a month, download Claude Cowork onto your desktop, and ask Claude how to solve it. And it will tell you, and it will give you a good pass. And if it doesn't work, go talk to Luigi because Luigi will be able to solve it because he can supercharge and do complicated things that Claude Cowork cannot do. That's about
We,
it.
yeah, I agree with that. I agree. Like you should know what it's capable of doing. You should. But I wouldn't recommend someone vibe code an internal tool that's going to be used across many people where it's mission
Correct.
critical. You have
Correct.
to maintain that software. You still need to deal with error handling. God forbid it fails silently or when you really need it. There still is a chasm between something you can vibe code and something that's production ready, that's
Correct.
reliable. And I
Correct.
think maybe that will change. Maybe that will change.
Correct.
But still, let's say it's on Palantir. Let's say I want to engage Build Vision. Okay, I want you to build something custom for me. How should contractors be thinking about this, Mike? Let's say like if you were giving your mom advice on, how to, let's use a general contractor, when should she look off the shelf and when should she, let's say, engage with you? Oh, we just lost your audio.
I muted myself. Sorry. I think it's a size position where you think it's a competitive advantage for yourself. If you're just trying to manage RFI submittals and change orders, and it again doesn't tie to a competitive advantage, I think you should go off the shelf. If you're trying to do something that's like I'm trying to get ahead of my customers or my not my customers, my competitors, I think that's where it makes sense to leverage because the cost is high. For Build Vision for an enterprise customer is the lowest contract we have is high six figures. And the reason for that is we tie to tens to hundreds of millions of dollars of an increased revenue, increased gross profit, or reduction in cost of sale. That's what makes custom valuable if that can be proven out. If it's not, again, I go back to this world of like, if it's a workflow tool, try to do this in Claude Cowork and then grow from there. If it's multi-party, I would look off the shelf for tools. But if you're like, hey, I want to create a new revenue stream for my business. So a great example is talking about my favorite company, Turner, that just started First Equipment Company. The business model around that is fascinating. Turner owns the insurance policy on a project. So they have CSIP and SDI. With that and their safety policies, you cannot use a 6-foot ladder on your job site, on Turner job site. So what do you need if you don't have a 6-foot ladder? You need a scissor lift. Who actually rents out scissor lifts now? Well, now Turner does with First Equipment Company. So thinking about, hey, I want to go build a software to help First Equipment Company manage their processes. That is a huge opportunity to build a custom workflow software for Turner because they have SAP and they have Procore, and I can create an ontology layer, an orchestration layer to make sure that every project that comes through Turner's pipeline, the first pass on any type of subcontractor, that any kind of SAP PO that goes out says, hey, First Equipment, you need to go after this company to rent them equipment. I think that is a great, great opportunity. It's directly tied to Turner's bottom line and it increases their revenue. That's where custom ontology, Palantir world, that's where it makes sense. If you're like, I am on a project and I want to manage submittals better, I would lean towards off the shelf software as best as possible.
Okay, so I feel like it's starting to click more for me, like where the ontology fits. Like if I'm the customers that we talk to have increasingly complex operations with an increasing number of revenue lines. Like more and more is getting self-performed, but I don't just mean work on site. More and more folks are setting up centralized equipment purchasing or rental
Yep.
like stuff.
Yep.
And it's like if I'm running that, like yeah, you probably want off-the-shelf fleet management. Like you don't go build fleet management, especially if it's a new business line before you take it off the shelf. The
Yep.
trick is you have
Correct.
this increasingly complex operational beast, and you need to be able to connect the dots between, like, this thing that exists over here, which is how the equipment rental company thinks about a project, and this thing over here, which is how your CRM thinks about projects, like, so that you can line them up and get them going quickly. And so the one corollary would be, if your business is expanding its number of revenue lines and offering a more complex offering that likely will drive a higher margin, you're going to spend a lot more money on IT.
So I think so if I was Palantir and my account was Turner, this is exactly how I would position this workflow. Hey, you use Procore, SAP, and some field management software. I am going to create a tool, an orchestration that every time a PO is created in SAP, I'm going to use an LLM to scrub the submitted purchase orders from all the subcontractors. I'm going to use an LLM to figure out how many scissor lifts do they need, and I'm going to create a report that shows up in the head of First Equipment company's email every morning that says, hey, these 7 projects were just awarded. You need to talk to them about scissor lifts. And then the next step would be, oh, let's even get into the purchase. Let's get into the before the bids are done. So now I'm going to connect to your building connected account and say, hey, every one of these bids, all of the bid forms need to say First Equipment company is renting out scissor lifts. What's your deduct for that? And then that deduct is then calculated, summarized. And then my pitch from Palantir would be, hey, I can go do this for you. I'm going to be able to increase the revenue of First Equipment company from $1 billion to $2 billion this year by doing this. I want 20% of the gross margin that you make on that. And if
My
I don't,
push
if I don't do any of that, if I don't prove any of that out and it doesn't grow revenue, I don't care.
But my pushback on that would be, so you're saying if you're making over $1 billion, it's a strategic advantage, you should go hire Palantir. But there are a lot of other people who build custom software besides Palantir who are probably capable of doing this. And so let's say any general contractor or subcontractor, I think at this point has room for improvement. There definitely is. From some process improvement, some way to cut costs, reduce overhead, that definitely exists. But you don't think that they should engage with someone to help them optimize their processes unless they think it's a competitive advantage themselves. Because I see now a thriving ecosystem, at least what looks like a thriving ecosystem of consultants and
Yeah.
custom software implementers targeting construction who are using their relationship. So they leave the construction industry. They say, you know what, now I'm going to be a tech consultant. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go basically get kickbacks from software companies so I can promote my product. And I'm going to go use my relationships with subcontractors and I'm going to sell them those products and take a sales commission. That, I mean,
I
it's
mean,
a little bit,
that's channel sale. That's like
Yeah.
it's channel sales.
like
Yeah. I mean, it's of
Autodesk did this around their BIM ecosystem,
course.
right? Like,
They still
where
do it.
they're still, all the resellers are still out there, because it turns out, like, off the shelf Revit doesn't get you very far. Like, you need all this other stuff that just lives inside of it. Like, it's a different set of problems than integrating between things. It's just like, I need more fucking buttons inside this tool. But they help. They're able to bundle. They're not a forward deployed engineer because they're not actually a part of the vendor. You can't take the lessons there and bake it all the way back into the underlying tool. It's not integrated that way, but they come in and they provide training and implementation consulting and then customization and integration so that you can actually realize the value of, like, whatever the tool is. Like,
Yeah.
that's,
I'm not pushing back on that. I still
yeah.
think that's a good model.
Yeah, I
It's a
think
good
that's a
law.
good model too. Yeah,
I think
I think you need last mile, and there might be a little bit of code there.
Yeah, and the value there is like that you're helping those customers implement a Claude or an OpenAI internally and building out the tooling for them to do that, without them having to do it. And it's not that's not a like that's going to get commoditized away because again, these models will get better and better.
You're saying it's going to zero.
I don't
Going
think
to
it's going to
zero.
zero, but it's the everyone has access to the same tools. Like there is going to be an arbitrage because everyone thinks there's an arbitrage in construction because people think construction people aren't tech savvy. I will still push back that building a data center or hospital is the most complex, most technical thing, maybe outside of building spaceships that go to the moon. And I think like that's where people are going to get burnt, where like they're going to go spend $20,000, $30,000 to sign up for someone that's like, hey, I can help you build a bid leveling tool in Claude Cowork right now. They'll spin it up and it'll break as soon as they start doing multi-party.
It's not really about the product. I think it's about the design. It's about the integration into their system. So I just think that the lines between somebody who can say, I'm going to implement software for you using third parties, and now I'm actually going to do some custom code myself. I think those barriers to entry are reducing. And so they're not hiring a Palantir, but they may say to a third party, hey, you're pretty good. You understand the market. Who should I buy for contract review? But also help me integrate it into my system by building custom stuff. Now it's not, it's not so different. It's not so different than, let's say, custom software. And I think that's probably a good thing. I think there needs to be more than just implementing off the shelf software. It's obviously more. It's more. It's human behavior change, but now it's bringing it into the systems we use. And so now, like if you squint, it's kind of like a makeshift Palantir from Wish. It's a little bit different.
So I think the better positioning for that is what Sierra just released. Sierra is Brett Taylor's customer support, customer success company. What they release, so they build an agent for your customer support success world. So hey, I'm on DoorDash and I want a refund because they delivered, Taco Bell and they forgot my chalupa. Sierra would be the first party of engagement, and they would appease the customer. If they appease the customer, close the case. Or it gets compensated for that. If it doesn't and it goes up to the next level of support, Sierra doesn't get compensated. So they built this really interesting framework around agents. And what they've done now is they've just released what's called Ghost. Ghost is a custom agent builder in their application that lets customers build whatever agents they want. So if I was Procore acquires DataGrid. DataGrid gives them the ability to build agents. How do you put scaffolding around Helix, around new data grid acquisition to let customers auto build their workflows, leveraging LLMs to build out these workflows that are even better for these agentic workflows? I think that is a very, very value accretive process. But I think the challenge for that is it's not tied to a top line revenue number for the general contractor, or it doesn't reduce the cost of goods sold on the bottom line. So for them to charge, 3-4x for an agentic outcome on a submittal review, doesn't mean they can't charge 3 to 4x for a submittal review, because it doesn't actually move the needle on those two metrics of does it increase revenue or reduce the cost of goods sold.
Well, I mean, why wouldn't it reduce the cost of goods sold? If I need to staff a
Yeah.
project with 2 PMs, but I can bring that down to 0.5 PM and, my PMs on multiple
I don't think
projects.
that's been
Sure, they're
proven.
on site, they're going to site trailers, they're talking to the site super, but there's a lot of time spent reviewing information, trying to find information, trying to review submittals. Like why would they not be able to do that? Let's say
So
with
yeah, let's go to the example of I'm building a hospital. I've got 10 employees on the job site. 20% of the time of those 10 employees is doing manual processes like submittal reviews, change orders. 80% is in the field. So even if you make those 10 employees 5 times more efficient, none of those 10 employees can go to another job site. They still have to be on the job site from 6 to 6. So that reducing cost, like, could you do it with 8 employees instead of 10? I think that's a challenge. That's a pushback, because those 10 employees, those 10 are probably each managing a different trade. And that 80% of time is with the trade in the field, not with me reviewing submittals. So you have an MEP super and an MEP project manager. Do you think you combine those? Possibly, maybe, but do you want to? I don't know if you want to, as a general contractor, combine those into one super MEP on a hospital project. And you can go down the list, and that's how they staff those projects. Sure, you could replace an admin. You're not replacing a PX. That PX isn't on 7 projects now because you have an AI tool that does submittal reviews for you or bid leveling. I think that's a very, very challenging position that hasn't been proven out yet.
There's always ancillary stuff behind the scenes though. And like you can look at the coordinator role, right? So like I always hear people saying like I want a coordinator, I need like an AI coordinator. Coordinator consists of like individual workflows. One may be submittal review. Okay, so now if I have one coordinator who used to work on 3 jobs, now they can work on 6 jobs. And my project director who's managing many PMs, well, maybe they're doing 4 PMs because they didn't have the bandwidth to understand the issues across more than 4 projects, but now they do 8. So I think if you extend those 2 things, yeah, sure, maybe the constraints at the PM level, but I don't. To me, it seems like cogs will go down. The more efficient, the more projects can be shared with the individual resources, those ancillary resources.
So in that
That's,
example,
like,
I would make
pretty tough. That's, like, pretty we're, like, shaving cost 2 degrees away from the hypothetical, like, RFI thing. Like, it's maybe, but I wouldn't pay a lot of money for that. Like, I'm not gonna accept a 4x Procore build because one day in the future, I might have slightly fewer project
Yeah.
director.
Oh, okay. I agree, but do they need to 4x their bill? I mean,
they need a
that's not
10x. They need to double revenue.
That's what they
okay.
want to
That's a
do.
Procore
They
problem.
need to.
Yeah.
So I think and I think this, I would make the bet that the companies and the contractors that invest in their people to train their people to understand what is like understand why a submittal is approved or declined, to understand why an RFI is approved or declined, why a change order is approved or declined, not with an AI agent, but like as an individual, will perform better in the long term. So the companies that are like, hey, we're going to AI agent away submittal review, change order review, RFI
Oh,
review,
yeah.
will be worse off in 5 to 10 years than the companies that do not do that. I know I like I've we've hired another person on our team from construction, and he always talks about his Turner experience. I know I like am a fanboy of Turner. Turner does a great job of teaching and educating their early employees. Like we went away for Turner camp for a week, and we all sat together and learned about construction. That is their mode. That is their value prop. And I've met thousands of other people that have like shifted away from construction into tech, and everyone that's from Turner says that they're from Turner. Everybody else doesn't really talk about it. To this point, this point, Victor was at Turner and Barton Mallow. He talks more about his Turner experience than his Barton Mallow experience.
Andrew,
Yeah.
you disagree. Well, obviously he says what he says, but like, what's your perspective on that?
Me? Sorry. I was going to say, I don't, Turner's, they're there, Mike. We know Turner's very special. Like,
I'm just
Turner's
telling you,
very
they do a great job
special.
of teaching but it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
the whole position
It's
is
just,
like
I'm just
that.
here to say others do too. There's a,
Yeah.
like, where we see, if we look at like our larger customers, the ones who like, it's not scientific, but if you're like the ones where I'm like, oh, I would like to own equity in this company. I would like to have a piece of this construction company just because of how I see them performing. Like one of the patterns is there's heavy investment in that onboarding and teaching, and that a lot of the AI applications that they're hungriest to apply are around like accessing that corpus of the Turner way or the Clark way or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
right? That it's not the acceleration that they're looking for is not in like in auto approving RFIs. It's in, can we accelerate that time for that PE to look like, can they look like someone would look like in 5 years, used to look like in 5 years of experience with only 2 years of experience. Like that's what we want.
But obviously you're not pushing back against people using AI to speed up the workflows. That would be kind of hypocritical, right? Like if you're going to vibe code a tool within Build Vision, you have to imagine that someone construction is going to try and automate a submittal review. And you can't say that, hey, like you're not going to understand construction as a result. There's many ways to solve that. They may be human in the loop. Imagine Mike, a GC is coming up to you and say, hey, there's many things I want to do within my organization. One of them is I want to reduce the time spent reviewing submittals, right? So that I can approve or reject or submit with comments and revise a little bit faster. What would your recommendation be?
Yeah, so the positioning that I'm taking is like AI can help to supercharge those individuals to do that workflow, but it's not replacing that workflow. So when you're charging for those workflows, it's just a nice to have time savings. And when you extrapolate that
Okay,
out,
I
that
agree
time
with you there.
saving then doesn't replace that PM, it just supercharges that PM. So when you're trying to tie to ROI, that's where I think it's a bit. I don't I if so I don't know the answer to that problem. Like I think that's just a challenge in the industry. It's like I think it's great that now I can review an RFI quicker and get a response quicker. It's great that I can review a submittal quicker and get a response quicker. But it's not just automating in the background and now it's just solved. So you're not replacing that time. Like, cool, it took me 1 minute instead of an hour to release an RFI. I'm not going home an hour early because of that as a super on a job site.
And you may go home
You
an hour
can't.
early.
You can't. You have to be on the job as a general contractor. You're the first one on the job site and the last one to leave.
Well, if you're staying late because you have a backlog of submittals to review, you're probably going home a bit early.
Okay, but all right, so yeah, so okay, but you're out. That's outside of the 6 to 6 time. So that's 6 to 8. Cool. You compress 6 to 8. You're still there 6 to 6.
Yeah.
Yes, that's not changing. Yeah, I
So
agree with that.
so your
Pressing 6 to
billable
8
hours.
seems like a good thing for families
Right, it's a
everywhere.
great thing.
Like
It's a. I'm
all
not
our
saying it's a
moms
bad
would
thing.
appreciate that.
That's a great thing. But that's 6 to 6, which you're really billing 8 to 4 at to the owner. You're already overextending that hourly rate. You're not compressing that 6 to 6. You're not getting from 8 to 4 to 8 to 2. So there's actually no time. There's no monetary billable hour cost savings because of it.
Yeah, it might be like you get like maybe it's slightly easier to hire because
Sure.
you're known for getting your PMs off the job site a little bit early. But that's this like, and that's a good thing, but that's a second order thing that's going to take it like,
Yeah,
yeah,
you're not saying it's not valuable. You're just saying
yeah,
the value is
it's
marginal
going to be
and
hard
it's not
to,
a real needle mover. And
Yeah, and gonna be hard
if
I
to
can see
build.
that.
if you're charging 6, 7 figures for trying to tie to revenue or reducing cost of goods sold.
Sure.
Those are the two.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah,
twenty
and
twenty
that's where
bucks a
our
month
argument.
an employee for a ChatGPT or a Claude subscription, fuck yeah.
let it rip. Or okay, it's $100 a month. It's in the plan grid. It's the plan grid model. Great, let it rip. Plan $1,000 a seat. Because that's this shift, right? Like, hey, we brought internet to the job site with Procore. We brought documents into the field with PlanGrid. What is the next step? You bring an AI into the field. Cool. It's a workflow tool. It makes it. It's great. It's great. I'm not saying it's poor, but it's not. It's not like this. Hey, now construction sites are gonna, open in 12 weeks as opposed to 3 years.
Where what needs to be broken to make this work? Where would you invest your time then to move the needle on revenue? Because if you're saying the sub is really constrained by, or the site super at the GC is really constrained by interacting with subs, and that's not going away because it's still a very human task. So that's what the choke point is. Where do you need to invest if you're building software to get that 2x on revenue?
Tied to revenue driving forces. And shout out to my friend Justin at Shepherd for just raising $42 million to drive
Yeah, that's
revenue in construction around insurance. Again, this is outside of the I'm on a job site doing automated submittal workflows. They're allowing brokers, insurance providers, contractors to get better rates on insurance using technology. That is a direct bottom line revenue driver. Hey, it cost me $1 million last year to get my GL policy for this project. With Shepherd, I got it for $850 or whatever the math is. That is a direct bottom line driver.
Yeah.
That's you're in the tech world where how are you tying to that outcome? My biggest regret is did not invest if I could have invested.
maybe you can get the Series C.
I wish.
Yeah, worse and worse ownership.
You'll be diluted less. You'll be diluted less.
Yes,
Not
the
that many
upside.
rounds.
But go through the tech. Like you can go through the tech, like the tech atmosphere. If I was a venture capitalist looking at investing in construction tech, where's the value props of like how do you move revenue needles? How do you reduce the cost of goods sold? And I believe both of you guys are doing this as well. Very like that's the pitch. But specific workflows on or SOR, it's tough. It's tough.
Personally, at Provision, we don't really touch operations, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I do like the idea, to your point, of creating revenue drivers, and pre-construction is just like a revenue team.
Mhm.
They're like a sales team. They don't get the credit of a sales team, but they really are a sales team.
Selling a building is probably the most like you think enterprise tech sales has it hard? Try selling a fucking building. Like just the
Wait.
I was thinking like building a hospital is like the most complex thing that humans do. I'm trying to like
Spaceships.
We need to
I
give
would
every
put,
estimating team a gong. We need to give every estimating team a sales gong, and they need to be as hyped up as when an enterprise salesperson makes an enterprise.
yeah.
Like enterprise sales are like, I have this SKU, let me sell this SKU. Pre-construction's like, no one knows what the hell they want, and I have to make this thing work, and I have no budget.
Yeah.
you guys understand the next data centers that are coming out? They're liquid cooling the GPUs by dipping the GPUs in liquid.
No.
Is
Tell
it
us
Like
why.
oil?
like
They
that.
do-
Like that's the technology that's
Yeah.
coming out. So now chiller manufacturers are stressed out because now you might not actually need a full liquid chiller, water cooled chiller, which is currently used to cool these data center racks. But now it's a self-sustained rack of GPUs that has a self-sustained loop that it's like the engineering behind that is insane. So yeah, as I'd say building GPUs, building spaceships, building construction are the three in that order are the most technical.
I think complex construction is more complex than
The
spaceships.
spaceships, the zero gravity, to be able to go from the change by pushback would be because I'm a mechanical engineer would be so a civil engineer, his hardest class is statics. Statics is like things like bridges. That's the easiest class for mechanical engineering, and
Whoa, I
that would be
wasn't
my
about that.
pushback.
This is
That
pure
would be my
shade.
pushback.
This is pure
That's
shade.
fair, but like
We take dynamics too. Okay.
yeah, the rocket's on fire. Like buildings,
As
you
an
plan
optional.
around fire. Like
If you want
buildings
to go into
change
structural.
shape. It's somewhat less, but you have thermal compression and expansion. Like buildings are taller on hot days. Like
Yeah, these buildings move, Mike. Okay.
buildings get wet. Like vacuum to air. Like that's easy. Who gives a shit? Salt water. Salt water.
Yes, you need a saltwater spray. Make sure your engineer in the specification in Boston puts saltwater spray on your rooftop units
Yeah,
for your Florida
non-corrosive
project.
rebar.
that is a a scope gap that happens all the time, but Luigi provision picks it up.
That's right.
Shots.
Use provision. Shout out to provision and all who make it. All right, we're gonna leave it there. Thanks for joining, everyone, and
Thanks,
we'll talk
guys.
next week. Massive